Alright guys, so it's after Christmas, and actually before Christmas I put together a video showing you how I made a sign, which was a gift for my father for his cabin. It's up in the woods up north here in Michigan. So what I have here is the whitewood pine that I cut, and why I'm prefacing this video after Christmas is actually I lost some of the footage. So we're just getting started here on YouTube. We don't really have the workflow down quite right. So I messed up and I deleted some of the original footage, but it's okay because all of the sign work that we did on the Shapeoko was saved. So what I want to do is take you on that adventure. Back just a few days before Christmas, we put this sign together. We did the design. We ran into a couple little bugs along the way. But let's go on that little trip and we'll show you what we did. And then if you'd like, jump on bandwagon here and we'll keep doing cool Shapeoko stuff. Okay, so I've got the piece of wood here on the Shapeoko. I'm going to put the clips on here, the hold downs first, and those will just slide into the T-tracks. Now these are the smaller hold downs. We're going to try these. This is the first project we've done on it, so I'm not real sure how they're going to work. You'll kind of come along with me on this ride. These, I think, given the thickness of our material, should be more than enough. But again, this is the first try for everything, so we're kind of learning as we go. This piece that I've designed is kind of a dog bone shape, so I think that by holding on these outside corners, this will keep it away from the cutting area itself. We'll just snug these up to start holding it down, and then we'll go ahead and tighten it back up so we know that it's securely fastened down here to the actual cutting surface. And she's on there for sure, not moving around much at all. The board was a little bit cupped, so I basically faced it so that the board was cupped upwards, and then I was hoping that I'd be able to pull it down with the actual work holding to try to level this out. I haven't surfaced this board yet. We talked about that in our last video. My intent is to do the surfacing once my Suck It Dust boot comes in, because from what I can read, that just kicks up a ton of dust, and inside the house I don't want to do that. So we're going to do that surfacing in another video. Stick around for that. But today we're just going to follow it around with the vacuum as the first cuts happen. Okay, so let's get connected to the Shapeoko using Carbide Motion. This is the program that they provide for you. If you've used a Shapeoko before, you're probably intimately familiar with the program, even more so than myself. As I was moving the gantry in the last part of the video there, you probably heard that my computer dinged. These stepper motors actually act as generators when you move that gantry back and forth, so it actually powers this up enough for the computer to recognize that something's there. I haven't turned the power on yet, so let's do that now, and you'll hear that ding again. And there it is, and that means now that my computer knows that the Shapeoko is there. We're going to click Connect to Cutter, and basically what Carbide Motion does is say, okay, now we're connected to that cutter. So what I want to first do is to go over to our jog, and we're going to initiate that homing cycle. And so what it's doing right now is it's homing the machine. It's moving that to its known positions to get a reference point for the rest of the afternoon of cutting. So we're going to start out by using a 1/4 inch end mill. This is a 3-flute end mill. It's number 201 if you're referencing the carbide numbers for these tools. This is one of the ones that is actually included with the package. If you buy a Shapeoko, you get this mill, and this is kind of the very basic, little bit utility, do-everything type of mill. I did buy 2 more of these with coating, but for this soft wood, I think this uncoated one we're going to try, and if we screw anything up, we'll break this one before we break the fancy new ones. I'm going to go over, put this into the Makita, and then we'll probe using the work probe here that was included with it, and we'll find our position with regard to the actual stock that we've chucked up. So what I want to do is make sure that none of my screws, you can see these screws are pretty long on the work holding. I wanted to make sure that nothing was going to hit my gantry when I moved it over, so I just used the fast jog to get it up there, made sure that I have lots of space, and I do. So being careful, again, first time around. So what we'll do now, knowing that it is going to clear, is we'll use the rapid positioning feature to bring that tool up to the front so that we can then install the mill into the Makita. So let's get this probe in position. We're using the carbide touch probe here. So I'm going to put that on the corner of the work. And this actually has the ability to not only probe the Z depth, but also find the X and Y position from the corner of your stock here, which is just really, really cool. It's got a cutout in the bottom here that actually orients the work. So I'm going to put that on there, make sure that we're nice and snug. Then we're going to take this alligator clip here and attach it to the actual tool so that the touch probe, as you can see when you touch it here, it turns red. That is going to tell the tool that it's gotten to the right depth. So let's hook that on there. Whoop. Let's hook that on there again. That should do. And then let's motor it over to the probe position. So you can use both your arrow keys on your keyboard and the actual buttons on Carbide Motion to jog it. That looks pretty close. We're going to come over just a little bit more here. And we're going to increment down on the Z to get it close. The touch probe likes to be fairly close when you start the initialization of the probing, otherwise it'll just error, so that's a good thing to keep in mind. So we're using the 201 tool, which we've selected, and we're probing the corner Z, X, and Y. So let's go ahead and start that process. All right, so now we know where our work is, and we can start with our first cut. Okay, so we have the safety goggles on now. We're going to play with fast rotating tools. That seems like a really smart move. Sorry for not wearing them earlier. We're going to start this guy up. We're going to set it to the number 5 setting, roughly speaking, and then we're going to go ahead and see what happens here. All right, so off it goes, starting from the center of the workpiece. This is, like I said, kind of a dog bone shaped cut. So you'll see that as we're cutting here initially, it's flaring out a little bit at the ends, and then it's dipping back down. I'm going to get over there with the dust collector and start sucking up some chips and keep my eye on it. But I'll have you guys along for the ride. We'll speed this part up so you can see how it goes. All right, so this is the first actual cut with this machine. It went pretty good. I can see where we didn't take into account that 3/4 inch difference in the wood. So measuring this out, I'm gonna grab the tape measure here. I've got a 1/4 inch ridge on this sign, and it looks like I've got about 3/4 inch of material left here. So it's gonna be really close on this cutout, the profile cutout here, but I think we're gonna be okay. I just wish that I would have pushed the 0 down just a little bit further. And when I probe from the corner, it's really important that the piece of material match the size that you've actually spec'd in your G-code. So it's a noob mistake, right? That's something that's going to happen. I think that we're still going to be able to make this one work. So we're going to run the next one, and that's going to be the carving that goes through here and then does some of the words and some of the little designs that we did. So let's go get that bit loaded up. We'll go to the next step. Okay, so now we've got the V-groove bit in. This is a 90-degree V-groove bit. I just bought this thing on Amazon. This is a white side bit. 1/4 inch point, 1/4 inch shank, and 1/2 inch cutting diameter. So this is the bit I'm going to do the carving with. I want to go ahead and zero this on the Z-axis, but I want to leave my other axes alone. So what I've done is I moved the block up off the corner here onto the top of the material, just like it tells me to do in Carbide Motion. I've chucked up the actual bit. And so now I'm going to do the 0 on the Z, and then we're going to send this one on its merry way. All right, so that zeroed out the Z for us. So I want to bring you over and show you. So the big thing that I'm watching here is these positions that are relative to my actual workpiece. And so I just zeroed out the Z. You can see that it motored up above that piece about 1.2 inches. But what's really important to me is making sure that it's still referencing the corner of the piece, which it is. It says we're about 0.2 off from the corner here, which is pretty darn close. So I like what I see here in the positioning. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and load up the next file here by getting rid of the probing, choosing run. And you can see that now we have the 90-degree V-bit carve code in, and we are ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and start that. So initially when it plunged in there, it kind of felt like it was going quick. What I did was decrease the feed rate by 20%. And that's a really cool feature in Carbide Motion, is that you can actually control the feed rates on the fly. So I went ahead and slowed it down just a little bit there. And it sounds a little better now. I think we were just getting a little aggressive with the feed rate coming out of the software. All right, so this is the V-carve. I think we went a little bit quick with that bit. It felt like it was getting a little wild there and chattering a little bit, but this is really soft wood, so this was a great starting point for us to play with this. I would definitely dial it down when it was plunging on the next sign, especially if you were going to use a little bit harder wood. But this turned out really nice. I'm pretty impressed. Obviously the V-bit, when it starts to clear material in these flat sections, it has to go back and do quite a bit of extra work because the tip is just a little tiny tip there. So coming back in and clearing a lot of that takes time. These smaller letters went a lot quicker because they were essentially just a V cut. That the bit could do inherently. So very, very impressed with how well that went. What we're going to do next is actually tape off this section. We're going to spray in some black on the words, and then we're going to face off the pocket one more time so that we can get these words to stand out when I stain the sign. So I think that's going to be the next move. So let's check that out. Okay, before I spray this, I just want to get rid of some of these little hairy spots on there. That's just little rough parts. So I'm using a sanding sponge. This is kind of nice because it conforms to the little V areas. I'm not looking to do any serious sanding here. I'm basically just trying to knock off those little burrs so that when I spray some paint in there, we don't get parts where those burrs eventually fall off and leave a contrasting white spot. So I don't think this is a necessary step, but you know, little prep work goes a long way into making a nice product. And since it's a gift, I guess we'll try it. Okay, so here's our makeshift paint booth. I've got some cardboard here from a priority mailbox that I just ripped up and put around the outside of the workpiece. What I'm going to use is this Kroger ad, just came today, which is perfect timing. We're going to throw this over the top of what we want to block here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just push it down through these screws that I have to kind of hold it in place. We're going to use some tape. Again, this is a pretty not exact science. This is just intended to keep some of that overspray to a bare minimum here. Now what I am going to do is go ahead and find the edges of my pocket, and I'm going to cut those out. So we'll find those in there, kind of feel them through the paper. I'd like to keep it off of the ridge where I'm going to go ahead and continue my milling process. because I'm going to profile cut this out, and there's a raised ridge around the outside of the sign just to make it stand out a little bit, to make the pocket stand out a little bit more. So I guess the idea here is if we can keep it off, the paint off there, I don't have to clean up more paint when I get to that point at the end of the sign. So we'll just push the edges down. I'm going to use some Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch. This is kind of a do-it-all type of spray paint, just a black spray paint. It's supposed to bond to pretty much everything. We sanded, we vacuumed, we cleaned it up, so we're going to give this a shot and see how it looks. You can see I'm kind of going slow. I'm trying to keep it off of everything else. So I'm just doing little tiny passes. If you were actually spray painting something for serious, you'd want to be able to kind of step back and get a nice even spray across the whole thing. But since we're just filling in, we're going to make it work. Got a few wet spots there. We'll let that dry. I'm going to grab the heat gun and accelerate that a little bit. If you ever watched the Tested channel, I love Adam Savage. He's great, and he gets the heat gun out because he doesn't have any patience. I'm kind of like him when it comes to painting. So I'm going to get the heat gun. We're going to dry this out real quick, and then we're going to surface that off and see what we get. You gotta be really careful with the heat gun. You can melt this paint really easy, especially when it's wet like this. So if you see it start to kind of bubble, you know you're getting it too hot. You gotta keep moving on this. This is one of those Wagner paint stripping guns, so it gets real toasty real fast. And we didn't do too bad. I don't think we got too much terrible overspray on everything. From what I can tell, my clamps came out mostly unscathed. I think this worked out pretty well. It would be really cool if you were doing something in production where you were doing kind of a repeatable design to make a little jig that just flopped right over the top of the sign in the pocket area, so that you could just paint that up real quick to get that offset and then mill out that final facing pass to get the real contrast that you're looking for. Okay, I know you all wanted to see how this turned out. So after we pulled off the masking that we did, it looks like we got this pretty well painted. There's a few lighter spots than others, but you know what? I am going to go ahead and run it the way it turned out here. I think it's going to be good. The paint is no longer sticky, which is what I was kind of waiting for because I didn't want chips to fly into the sticky paint and then I'd have to clean those up later. So let's go ahead and get this next pass going. The next one's actually going to be the same pocketing pass that we ran the first time, but just taking off 0.02 inches. So just a little bit to hopefully remove all this extra oversprayed paint. All right, we've got the safety spectacles back in place, and we are going to go ahead and start this up. Ramp the speed back up to 5, and then we're going to go ahead and go one monster. All right, gentlemen, this is the first mission glitch. We did not take into account the fact that if I subtract 0.02 from the original 0 point, it's not going to get anywhere near the pocket that we started. So I screwed up. This is the first run. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and generate a new pocket G-code path here, and we're going to make it 0.22, which is what it needs to be. That would be just a little bit under what we originally spec'd. And we're going to come back down and rerun it. So let me go get some new code. We'll come back to the sign. We'll try it one more time. All right, so I know you're dying to know what happened there. So actually that path would have worked, but it was going to do a whole bunch of extra work that it didn't need to. So it was going to start at the level surface here, and then it was going to take it down to the depth that I wanted to clean with. It would have been 2 full passes on this, which is just an inefficient pass. So it wasn't a terrible mistake. one we can recover from. Basically, I went back up and I set the starting depth to the actual depth of this pocket as it lives right now, and then we're going to take that other 0.02 inches off. So the new code is generated. Let's try running that and seeing if we can get back on track here. All right, I want to show you the final product. It isn't perfect, and I think what happened here is the grain really sucks up that paint. And right along the edges there, I can see a lot of bleeds. You can see that all the way through here, up here as well. What I'm going to do is actually do one more pass. I know, I keep saying one more time. We're going to take another thou off of the top of this and see if we can get rid of a little bit more of this bleed. If it doesn't work, not a big deal. I can recut this, or what I think I would do in the future is spray all of this interior section with clear first. And that would have been a smart move. And then when we apply the black over the top of that clear, it's going to be less likely to be sucked up by the pores of the wood. So it's just kind of a learning experience here, right? This is our first try. I just wanted to share that. I'm going to take one more little pass off here again, see if we can clean it up a little bit more and salvage it, and then we'll go ahead and profile cut it out. Okay, it took 3 passes to get it to where we are right now, and that is because that spray paint actually ran through the grain of the wood, so I had to take off a little more each time than I thought I was going to have to originally. I planned on taking just 2 thou off, and then I ended up taking another 0.012 off, and then another on top of that. So 3 passes to get it to here. I'm going to call it acceptable. What I'll probably do is try to pick a stain that we can kind of hide a little bit of that mistake with, so that it looks relatively presentable. But in the future, definitely what I would do is to come in here, hit this all with clear, then do the coloring on it, and then come back with the clear coat over the top of everything so that it doesn't run into the grain, and you can hide some of this, these specks of color that we got using this black paint on this very white wood. So the last thing we have to do today to finish this project and make this a Christmas gift is to essentially profile cut it out. So I have one more tool path. That's going to go 0.75 inch deep over the course of about 6 passes, leaving 4 tabs to hold that in place so that I can pop it out. Okay, profile cut went all right. We didn't cause any problems, but it got really close to this back clamp, so I have to be very cognizant when I'm doing something like that. So close to the edge here. It definitely got real close. It wasn't the bit that was going to hit. It wasn't the bit that was going to hit the actual clamp here. It was actually going to be the body of the router catching this big top piece that you fasten it down with. And these are kind of bulky, so might have to think about that a little bit on the next project. But let's take it off here and take a look at what we got. So, ultimately, it doesn't look like we went through to our spoil board, which is good. We did have a little skin left on here, just an onion skin left on there, and that's actually pretty desirable in my opinion. Those tabs, the top tab of course broke off. This was because throughout the whole process, I talked about it at the beginning, my stock wasn't quite the right size, so we kind of called an audible there and went ahead and cut it anyway. So this tab wasn't doing anything, but the rest of them did. That onion skin's not going to be too bad, so we'll pop the sign out here. and see if we can't clean it up on the sander. So there it is, all said and done, and that won't be too bad to clean up at all. These pieces are so thin, you can just roll them right off the edge. Those tabs, they're 3D tabs, so basically V-shaped tabs instead of just square block tabs. I thought that'd be a little bit more easy to break off when we came back here and snapped the sign out of the actual blank. But that's the project for today. Thanks a lot for coming along on this ride. This is the first time we ran this machine all day long. It was about 4 hours start to finish on this project. Made a whole bunch of chips. The old dust collector got a little run here. This is the first thing. I'm going to stain it up. I'm going to seal it up with some poly, wrap it up, and that is going to be a Christmas gift. So thanks a lot, guys. If you liked what you saw, come on back, hit the subscribe button. We're going to keep doing cool things with this Shapeoko.